boy King Say So, and I'm back with another video. Before we to it, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Check out the search box to find my channels. Make sure you watch the full video. With all being said, let's get right into it.
Man, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of EOS. It's 1090 Jake, and I'm rocking with y'all rocking with me. And for this video, we're gonna be speaking on a Chiraq Latin king with Down syndrome that's been charged with gunning down two people. With the beating of 6ix9ine down in Florida, the Latin kings have been trending across social media. And now, a Latin king out of Chicago has made headlines for showing how down for the set he is. February 26, 2023, Chicago police spotted a stolen Chrysler 300 riding through the city's west side. Attempting to stop the vehicle, the Chrysler took off at a high rate of speed while officers observed an item being thrown from the car window. A brief pursuit would end when the vehicle stopped and two men attempted to run. Officers would fire stun guns before restraining the suspects and located a .380 caliber handgun, which was believed to have been the item thrown from the vehicle. 21-year-old Anthony Maldonado and 22-year-old Nicholas Samudo would be arrested at the scene and identified by the driver as the two suspects who fatally shot a man 16 hours earlier. Nicholas Samudo is a documented member of the Latin Kings who goes by the name Smush and is also documented or diagnosed with Down syndrome. It was 2:35 a.m. when officers arrived at the 2700 block of West 18th Street. A dead body laid in between two parked vehicles with gunshot wounds to the chest and head. He was identified as 22-year-old Tomas Villa. An investigation would soon learn Tomas was walking home after parking his car when he was mistaken for a member of a rival gang because of the hat he was wearing. Tomas had walked past the stolen Chrysler when Anthony opened fire from the front passenger window, causing Tomas to take cover in between two vehicles. That's when Smush got out of the back seat of the car, stood over Tomas, and fired rounds into his chest and head.
Damn.
A surveillance camera captured the murder, but the suspects couldn't be identified. Detectives instead tracked the car's movements before and after the shooting with different surveillance cameras, including a liquor store's, which helped them identify the suspects. .380 caliber shell casings were found at the scene of Tomas's body, and it's believed Smush threw the .380 from the vehicle during the chase. A gunshot residue test would be conducted and positively react to Smush's red hoodie. Anthony and Smush would be charged with the stolen vehicle, resisting police, and felony murder, while the driver went uncharged. Smush would go into court when his public defender brought up his Down syndrome, saying he has mild to moderate mental and physical disabilities. The prosecution would then indict Smush on a second murder, alleging he killed a man 10 days before he killed the second.
Oh.
This was unlikely to be a random shooting. It was very aggressive given the nature of the shooting.
He wasn't breathing anymore. He was dead already. I called the ambulance, but it was too late.
On February 16th, Illinois State Police responded to Interstate 55 just after 9:30 at night. Stadies would locate an SUV on the right side of the expressway with the driver's side rear window shot out. A pregnant woman with her 11 and 3-year-old daughters were outside of the vehicle, while her husband and their father, 28-year-old Humberto Garcia, was pronounced dead inside of the vehicle. They had just turned onto the expressway when the wife heard an explosion, believing it was a tire. She looked back and saw the window was shot out and screamed for her kids to get down. Her 11-year-old daughter shielded her 3-year-old sister as gunfire erupted, and the wife thought everything was okay until her husband lost control of the vehicle. She grabbed the wheel, guiding the SUV off to the right before putting it in park and checking on her husband. He'd been shot dead, and shortly after law enforcement arrived, she was taken to the hospital as a pregnancy precaution. Through extensive investigation, the suspected shooter's vehicle and passengers were identified, which put law enforcement's eye on King Smush. The shooting was determined to be a case of road rage, and the same investigators would later assist in his capture. So in a span of 10 days, Smush had killed 2 men. But investigators would also note that 3 years back, Smush was suspected of having killed another man.
Oh,
A Chicago man has been laid to rest 1 week after he was found
He was out
dead
here
in the
catching
street
bodies,
in Kinley
boy.
Park. His family says he was murdered, shot in the back of the head.
Like, why? He wasn't in, I mean, I don't judge nobody, but, you know, he wasn't in a gang or anything.
December 30th, 2020, it was 1 a.m. in the morning when someone driving saw a man laying in the middle of the street. Police arrived on scene, observing the trauma to the man's head, when an ambulance transported him to the hospital. 21-year-old Gene Cobian was pronounced dead, and while it was initially thought he'd been hit by a car, it turned out he'd been shot in the back of the head. His mother was notified her son had been executed and his car and phone were missing. 6 weeks after the murder, police arrested Smush, who was found with a bullet inside of a backpack while they were investigating a double-packed car. It turned out a witness had positively identified him as taking part in Gene's murder. Smush was 18 at the time. This was his 17th arrest, but he was never actually charged with the murder as the case against him was weak. And it turns out
you caught with a bullet that matched the type of caliber that was used to end this man's life. You got an eyewitness that said it was you, and you still out. See, sometimes you gotta blame the law for other people losing their life, because if they would have locked him up right then, you was 18. They would have locked him up right there, sent him to a hospital somewhere. You wouldn't have been able to catch them other 2 bodies, probably. But that's crazy, man.
he'd never actually been convicted of any crime. Facing the rest of his life in prison, King Smush is tied to 3 bodies in the city of Chicago and just may be the only member of any gang to have Down syndrome and be down for the set. Now, this is one of the wildest cases I've ever heard of, and I'm not surprised it's coming out of Chicago. I would have guessed Chicago, Florida, or the Bronx. To hear that the Latin Kings have a no discrimination policy is wild, because I can't imagine anybody seeing somebody with Down syndrome and being like, yeah, we're gonna make him one of the guys. You know what I'm saying? Like,
nah, sometimes it's about who you
but
know.
obviously something within him is either naturally violent or his environment has trained him to be how he is. I mean, he's got 2 teardrops tatted on his face, a dollar sign, and since he was 18, he's been named in murder investigations. This man allegedly has committed 3 murders. He's only 22 years old, and he has Down syndrome. What? Like, I don't mean to laugh because it's a serious, but what? Like, imagine you gotta, yeah, da-da-da got killed. Nah, he got killed. Who did it? And then you see his picture. What? And one of the craziest aspects about the entire situation is it wasn't even him that snitched. Apparently, it was the driver who went unnamed, unarrested, uncharged with anything. I mean, he could have made up any story like.
That's why you never judge a book by its cover. You never know who or what somebody is capable of. You never know. You never know, bro. Like, they could be the most smartest person, the most weirdest person. And they can be the most. They can be look like the most craziest person ever, but be the most nicest person on earth. You never know.
Oh, they had the gun on me and they made me drive and this and that. But it wasn't even bruh that snitched. It wasn't Smush.
It wasn't
apparently
Smush.
Someone else, and we don't know what the fuck he's diagnosed with. But damn, this shit's crazy. Now, on a serious note, I mean, it's horrible because everyone that was killed, you had a case of mistaken identity. You had a father that was killed in front of his 11 and 3-year-old daughter and his pregnant wife, his 6-month pregnant wife.
Man, she had to pull the car to
And
the
then you
side,
had some other
bruh.
21-year-old kid that was going home and got shot in the back of the head. Has no idea what the fuck just happened. He's walking home and everything turns off. And apparently his head and chest were damaged to the point that they thought he was hit by a car, when it turned out he was shot in the back of the head. Which I'm assuming means he was hit with a bullet big enough to do crazy damage, if it's affecting all this.
Shotgun.
If what is being alleged is true, how do you punish somebody with Down syndrome, bro? Because it's like,
He got to go to the regular jail. You know.
can you still be held accountable? You got people.
He got to go to the regular jail, because I can see if this is like, all right, your first offense, and it was something like, a regular weapon, not a toolie, a regular weapon. Somebody was messing with you. Somebody was trying to bully you. You picked something up. You smacked him. Bam. Something happened. All right. But this is your third possible case. Each one dealing with a toolie. You know what you're doing, bruh. You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. Ain't no way you don't know. Like I said, the first time, all right. 2, come on. 3, nah, bruh. Nah, forget that Down syndrome, bro. That might just be, like, you know how we might know somebody who's on SSI. It's something wrong with you, but it ain't nothing really wrong with you. But you playing that role to the extent to where you got that check.
That will go the mental route, saying they're mentally crazy, but would that work for him? Could they put him in a general population
He
prison
got to.
yard?
You
know
know
what I'm
what
saying?
you
Like,
doing.
he's gonna go over there and pick up a knife and keep gangbanging, or was he led down this direction by his family, his peers, etc.? It's hard to understand, but I would assume that an environment that's filled with violence and bloodshed, you're gonna become that if that's your influence. You're gonna get with it or fall victim. Even to the point that if you're mentally, like, if you have Down syndrome, you still understand.
Oh God,
Even
you
though
understand
you
what's
have
going on.
disabilities, you still understand it's life or death out here. And he decided to pick up a gun. Man, drop y'all's thoughts in the comment section.
I ain't on cap, bro. That is really, really wild, though. But it always, you might have Down syndrome, but it depends on the depth of that. I think every Down syndrome case is different. I don't think they're all just the same, like, to where, like, bro, I don't know. I go to guys and let me know, and I catch the next video.